Most people are addicted to the hustle. We've been told that if you are not exhausted by 5 p.m., you did not work hard enough. But what if 80% of your effort is actually trash? What if the problem is not your willpower, but your strategy? In the next few minutes, you're going to see why your to-do list is secretly your biggest enemy. You will see how people like Warren Buffett use a simple mathematical imbalance to get many times the results in a fraction of the time. By the end, you will not just work differently, you will see the world through a filter that cuts out the noise and keeps only the profit. Back in 1906, an Italian economist named Vilfredo Pareto was not trying to fix your productivity. He was studying land ownership in Italy. He noticed that about 20% of the population owned about 80% of the land. That alone was strange. Then he looked around more and saw the same pattern repeating in other countries and even in his own garden, where roughly 20% of the pea pods produced about 80% of the peas. This uneven pattern later became known as the Pareto Principle, or the 80-20 rule. This is not just a business trick. It is one example of a larger pattern that shows up in many areas of life, where a small number of causes create a large share of the effects. It appears in economics, in quality control, in crime statistics, and in healthcare costs, where a minority of patients often account for the majority of spending. The exact numbers are not always 80 and 20, but the imbalance keeps appearing. Here's the problem. Most people live as if the world is linear. They give 100% of their energy to 100% of their tasks and expect a fair, even return. The reality is not linear. A small share of what you do produces most of your results, and the rest is background noise. When you ignore that, you work harder and harder for smaller and smaller gains. This leads to what can be called the efficiency trap. People try to become more efficient at things that should not be done in the first place. You buy a faster laptop so you can answer emails faster. You use new tools so you can create more reports. You optimize your calendar, color code your tasks, and still feel like nothing important is moving. If the 80-20 rule is true, then most of those emails and reports have very little impact. Being efficient at low-value tasks is one of the fastest ways to stay stuck. You feel busy and tired, but the big levers in your life are untouched. You can see the 80-20 rule in your own relationships. You may have hundreds of contacts, but you probably spend most of your time talking to a small handful of people. A small number of conversations give you most of your support, your ideas, and your energy. That's the same pattern. Now imagine if you applied that kind of focus to your work, your business, or your learning. So how do you actually use this? One way is to apply a simple elimination framework. Step 1 is a revenue or results audit. If you're a freelancer or business owner, look at your clients and your projects. A small share of them likely create most of your income. Another small share probably creates most of your stress. They are often not the same group. The logical move is to protect and double down on the profitable few and either reshape or remove the ones that drain you. Step 2 is to ask a high-leverage question. The question is, what is the one thing you can do today that makes many other tasks easier or unnecessary? This forces you to look for actions that create ripple effects, not just quick wins. It could be designing a better system, having one important conversation, learning one high-value skill, or fixing one root cause that keeps generating problems. Step 3 is to enforce a no policy. To protect the top 20% of tasks that create most of your results, you have to say no to a lot of the remaining 80%. In many cultures, people are trained to say yes to every request, every meeting, every favor, because it feels polite or safe. But every yes to a low-value task is in practice a no to a higher-value one you no longer have time or energy for. There's also a deeper level to this idea. The 80-20 rule is fractal, which means the same kind of pattern can repeat inside itself. If you take your top 20% of tasks, the ones that create most of your results, and apply the rule again, then roughly 20% of that smaller list will again produce the bulk of the value. 20% of 20% is 4%. In rough terms, the top 4% of your actions might create around 2/3 of your results. In practical terms, that could be one single task, one relationship, one offer, one piece of content, or one skill. If you identify that tiny set and consistently invest there, your progress looks very different from someone who tries to do everything. Many highly effective entrepreneurs work this way. They don't try to personally handle 100 different things. They focus on the few decisions and actions that move the entire system. The hardest part of the 80-20 rule is not the math, it's the courage. It takes courage to let go of busy work that makes you feel safe and important. It takes courage to say no when you've been rewarded your whole life for saying yes. It takes courage to accept that most of what fills your day is not moving you toward the life you actually want. So here's the challenge. Look at your own life and identify one obvious 80% task, something that takes time and energy but gives almost nothing back. Decide to stop doing it, or at least cut it sharply. Then look for one 20% task, something that has outsized impact, and give it more attention than you're comfortable with. If you want to keep going deeper into this way of thinking, stay around for more content like this. The goal is simple: less noise, more signal; less random effort, more deliberate leverage; fewer tasks, better results.